Welcome back to an afternoon edition of Doggin It, or late morning, rather, edition of Doggin It. I am Molina Mike, and I'm riding in solo today, but I'm joined with the American captain, Jeremy Jones. Jeremy, how are you, buddy?
Good, good, Mike. How you doing?
I'm doing well, man. Hey, listen, I opened up with the video from Albert at Fort Worth Billiards, and I know you got a relationship with him. Talk briefly about that, and because he's helped us out quite a bit, and we really appreciate him.
Oh, well, he helps everyone out. Albert and his entire staff are great people. Been around. I think that store's been around since the '50s or something like that. Um,
Yeah, the original one, right? Because I think they just moved, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like a couple years ago.
yeah. They built a brand new freestanding building. But Albert started at that store, kind of sweeping the floors. I think at the age of like 12 or 13.
Is that right?
Yeah, and then end up buying the store with his partner later on, many years later, and has grown it into kind of like uh, a landmark for billiards here in the DFW area and really in Texas area because he helps so many people.
Yeah,
Just really, really good guys.
yeah. No, they're awesome. I made it a point to stop on by there when I was in there. I think it was during the pandemic. I went up to go visit some family because I got family in Arlington, and but you mentioned you hit the nail on the head because it's kind of a landmark. I had to go by and check it out, and the showroom is just amazing. He was a big part in helping us get out there to the Mosconi Cup, and yeah, just a real nice guy, man. But I didn't realize that that's how we started. That's pretty cool because it's like the American dream, right?
Yeah, and if you know Albert, it almost kind of makes sense. Like you probably thought it was some kind of great story with Albert. Just the way he is, and he's a good businessman, of course. That's the only way you can keep your doors open and improving like that. But he's a good businessman with a big heart, and just gets more involved. It seems like with pool every day.
Yeah, without a doubt. It was a fun week, and I know he was out there for a couple of days, cheering on the red, white, and blue. Let's jump on into the event, Jeremy. Now that the buzz is kind of worn off a little bit, walk us through some of the things that you reflected on and how it ended for you.
Well, um, Saturday night was a lot of fun afterward, and
Yeah,
the all the players and staff and friends and whatnot getting together. Um, doesn't take away what we wanted to do eventually end up with, which was the win, but
right.
uh, it helps, and family and they kind of everyone kind of just relaxing finally. I guess the tension kind of going away and enjoying ourselves Saturday night, and last few days just hard to shake it off a little bit because we wanted the W so bad, and I think we put ourselves in position to snatch it away kind of from the Euros. But also, got to feel good in what the guys had done and looking forward.
Yeah, it's we're kind of old school in that like we don't take a lot of moral victories, but I do more so than you over the conversations that we've had over the last couple of years, and um, I thought it was. I think you said it best. You put yourself in a position to kind of steal a couple, and we're in really good spots. The 11-7 score line, and I'll be honest with you, like heading into it, I didn't think it was going to be like that. I didn't think it was going to be that competitive. Aside from the fact the environment was electric, the Americans stood tall, and put up a fight, even in matches that they lost. There weren't very many lopsided score lines one way or the other. You know.
Yeah, I was actually looking back at some of the scores and stuff before last night because we were supposed to go on the air last night. And I think that was on my end. Windows open. They do a great job all the time, so
Thanks.
I'll take the loss on that one. But
No, no, you're good. We're flexible around here.
yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of people thought that, I guess, going in, and I played in a lot of Mosconi Cups where it looked like the U.S. was you know, pretty big favorite, you might say, but playing in those Mosconi Cups and realizing how much of a threat all those European teams were. And probably those teams don't get enough credit just because of some of the European teams these days. But um, I thought, I always feel like we got a chance. some years I feel better than others. I'm not going to lie about that. But I felt great about this year's team. The entire year set up for a much more competitive Mosconi Cup. If you just think about it, the guys getting a lot of match time in big tournaments, getting to play a lot of these guys, and
Yeah.
like I said a second ago, just kind of progressing as we went. And I'm with Earl involved, which I'm sure we'll discuss in a minute. But I felt like it was going to bring the best out of Shane. Skylar's been in a good position these last few months, really putting in a lot of time. Um, and of course, Oscar qualifying, I thought Tyler was in a good position. So I thought we really had a good shot, and maybe needed a good start or really one exceptional day in there somewhere to try and snap this thing off. But we did everything to really win, besides just kind of close the door.
Yeah, I mean, they were in there early on, and a couple of matches with Earl come to mind. A couple of key, balls that were missed, and in a race to five, it can really swing the other way. And we'll go into it more specifically, but I want to just follow up a little bit on the Europeans. And you mentioned Sky and the performance he had. One of the things that really struck me, Jeremy, when the was when that case nine ball went down. Usually we're used to seeing uh, Josh and Jason and all those guys, celebrate and kind of not rub it in, but just enjoy the moment. And you didn't see that from Josh. Once that ball went in, he immediately went over to, tell Tyler, hey, I didn't want to win like that. What was that respect that was given from the European players to you and your guys like for you all?
Well, I mean, the Euros are competitors. They're the right type of competitors, meaning I think they try to feel things as they go, and learn from them. And
Well, we might have lost we might have lost Jeremy, so let's just stand by a little bit. Let me see if I can. Oh, here he goes. He's coming back in here.
yeah,
Hey,
um,
you there?
yeah, I'm here. I don't know what
All right.
happened there. It just kind of
Yeah.
popped off. I got a little better computer for us today, so I'm hoping
Oh,
everything holds up a little bit
no, it
better.
looks good. It looks good.
Yeah, but they're real guy. They're real guys. They're honest with themselves. Probably why they do so well overall. They don't really make excuses as far as assessing what happened in matches. And I talk about Josh all the time. Some of the things some of the fans don't like about Josh at times, because it's the Mosconi Cup.
Right.
He's gonna have some flair, extra flair, but he's one of the most genuine guys that I've found in a long time, especially at that top level. And I think he's become more genuine as he's gotten older. And those guys appreciate the fight. They want the fight, and they recognize that there was a fight there. So as much as it was a letdown for us when that final nine was made, it was some type of settling feeling that Josh got through that fight, and them guys felt it. Maybe it was a little different, like I said, than when what we felt when that nine went down,
Right.
but there was definitely emotion, I guess, is the way I'm getting at it. And you know that's what we all want to see.
Yeah, the Mosconi Cup is a completely different animal, and even when we saw in the press conference all the trash talking and kind of building up a fight, but we had Jason on one of those nights. I think it was after day two, if I'm not mistaken, and even after the emotions of that day, he made it a point to really give you guys a lot of credit. Not saying that they didn't respect you or were looking past you, but um, he was very matter of fact in saying that we expected this, and we were ready for it. The amount of pushback that we were going to get, not just from Team USA, but then the other sixth man out there, or seventh man rather, in that crowd in Las Vegas.
Yeah, the crowd was great. They probably reset almost as well as any player on our team, and
Yeah.
they had to do a lot of it. It's amazing. You got 2,500 fans there, but it's still amazing to me how much they still pay attention, and see every last little detail out there, and recognize what's going on. Those fans they're getting more educated every day, and the passion is growing more every day. Not only for pool, but especially for this Mosconi Cup. And yeah, there was something special. So I think there were a lot of emotions in that room besides just the 10 or 12 that had jerseys on. So.
The education part is correct because there was moments, key shots in those events where my tensions are getting high, my palms are sweating, my nerves are going through the roof, and you know it's a big shot. And if you know anything about pool, you know it's a big shot, and that's just the kind of crowd that was out there. Because as wild as it was during certain moments, there were times where it was dead silent. I mean, that entire room was holding their breath, and it would last for a split second, but everybody knew the weight of that moment. It was pretty incredible to see, especially given like the one end of the spectrum versus the other, if that makes sense.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think it's, just like the Moscone itself, the fans are improving in all kinds of ways. Um, that's one thing that I always said about, once we start to see more of the game, which the break rule, a little bit tighter pockets, of course, that we're getting to see more of the game. And I think we don't give the fans enough credit when it comes to that. They're educated fans, and they recognize a lot, and they're an important part of our sport. And I think also, you never know, you might start to see more regular tournaments get a little bit more like Moscone style fans in there, and that's
Oh,
what
I
we're
would hope
really,
so.
yeah,
Yeah.
that would be awesome.
I've never been to an environment like that before in my life, and you've been to a lot of Mosconi Cups, but I've never seen an atmosphere like that ever. Most events are a little stale, a little stiff. Even when you're around like the TV arena, it's like you're working to get an applause out of there. I think there was a good mix of being sports fans, but then also being respectful to the game, if that makes sense. I mean, there was a few times where it kind of got a little out of line, especially that last match with Tyler. There was a guy in there that was just brutal, but for the most part, like the atmosphere is unlike anything I've ever seen. Even when I was out there in the media room a few times, and we would take a few minutes just to kind of relax a little bit. You could literally feel like the vibration from the crowd. It was incredible.
Yeah, I was doing a lot of walking around throughout the venue, going to see the players in the practice room, see if they're okay, running back out to watch the match, and everywhere in between. And you could definitely feel it. Talk to a lot of employees because we're kind of back by the kitchens and stuff, and they were like, this is incredible. They never felt anything like this
Yeah.
before, and Bally's maybe not Madison Square Garden, but it's had some events before, and I've been to the World Series. I've been to a lot of different big playoffs in other sports. I've been to the Masters. Been to a lot of things, and I'll tell you, the energy at the Mosconi Cup is one of a kind, and the fans they make that, the players make that, and of course Matchroom sets it all up to have that success.
Yeah, without a doubt. Let's jump on into the pockets because you mentioned them briefly in passing. I talked with Alex later the other day, or me and Joey and Mike did, and he mentioned that was more of an equalizer. And I'm curious if you guys felt that way going into it, and how much attention to the break did you guys put into it in the final few days.
Yeah, the break. I mean, the break was huge. I think we got outbroke overall, but it was a weird thing. It was almost like we got outbroke after we made a mistake. It seems like, it's kind of like the break went back and forth, good and bad for both teams. But then when we got a mistake in there, we got punished big time with it. I think it was an Alcadian Shaw that played a doubles match.
It was a
Or
horrible match on their end. I think I don't remember what the scoreline was, but I think David had something like five fouls, or not five fouls, something like four fouls. I think just in that one match, and then he comes out breaking like King Kong in the following singles match right afterwards.
yeah, and it was
I
like
mean,
a turn.
textbook,
Yeah, and it was like no problems right from the gate. He won the lag and broke and
right?
got like a duck to start with which David to me is one of the top 5 or 6 guys in the world when he gets that starter because he's so good with the cue ball. He's good with his emotions and he keeps himself in check. Um, But later on that day, I can't remember. I got it up here, right here, if I want to look. But Shaw played another doubles match where didn't play very well. Got to play a singles right after to end that same day. I think it was day two.
I think it was the match with him and it was him and Josh getting the donut against Shane and Sky, or Sky and someone, I can't remember, but I want to
No,
say it was that. Yeah,
that's exactly right. But then also it came, Shaw came right back up afterwards
right.
and did the
And
same
was
thing
breaking the
as
balls phenomenally, just like
exactly
David.
did the same
Yeah,
thing as David. Yeah, it was so there were some funny moments in that event to where the balls just broke really well. We had some good ones as well, but it was like timely breaking well. It was the right
but
time to break well for the Euros, where you might see a little chink in the armor, but maybe the starters at the beginning of the match kind of kept that from happening.
yeah, timing was pretty big. But even you start off 3-1. I think you guys go down. What was the second day? Something like they lost 3-1, so it would have been 4-4, right after day
It was
two.
4-4 after day two. Yeah, we lost the
Four,
first three matches on day two. Earl had a 3-0 lead and a 3-1 lead in two of those matches, and then Sky came in and won that fourth match on day two.
well, let's talk about Earl because he was a big question mark. There was a big question mark going into it. You had a real big chance to look like a genius there, Jeremy, putting him in there in two spots, and it was real ballsy of a move, especially given how tense it could be at times, and the unknown whether Earl would hold up. Um, I'll just come out and ask you, do you have any regrets putting him in there? I know you didn't have the option in the first match out of those. I think it was three out of the first four, but in that first one, you didn't have a choice. But looking back on it, do you think you were at least in a good position, if anything else?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of really felt leaned on that first match that Shane and I think it was Shane and Earl. I believe I felt like they would win that match. And if that match gets played late on day two like it was supposed to, maybe things are a little different. But I really felt like he was going to win that match. Played really well with Shane. Tyler comes up next, in the singles, and I just felt like that he would feed off that match, and then he came right back with singles as well. And I
Yeah,
kind of also felt like this Sky and Earl, even if they lost, that the way Skylar was playing, they weren't going to play a bad match. It wasn't going to be anything bad, and Skylar would have Earl in the best frame of mind possible. Looking back, probably a mistake, maybe. Looking at mainly how Tyler was playing. Of course, I talked with Tyler afterwards about it, and said he didn't have a problem with it at all. He would have spoke up otherwise, which is another great thing about our team. We
I
could
believe
speak,
that of Tyler too.
yeah,
Yeah,
we could speak pretty freely during our team meetings and whatnot. And I mean, of course, hindsight would even tell
yeah.
me that maybe it was a little bit of a mistake, but it could have really got us rolling as well. I mean, if you look at it another way. So,
I agree with you 1,000%. You can look at it from either side of it, because when you're if and this is the argument. Me and Joey had a real heated discussion about this. I think one night as we're leaving Bally's going to Griff's in Las Vegas, and I wish Joey was here because he would explain it a little better. But in a nutshell, I said, listen, if you're going to tell me I'm up 3-0 on Jason, I'm taking it every day of the week going to five. Now,
yeah,
granted, Earl, and the same thing with Albin. If I'm up 2-0 on Albin going to five, I'm going to take it. Now, if you lose, that's just the way the cards end up, laying at the end of the day. That's how the chips fall, as they say, right? But if you're going to tell me I'm in that position, then I'm getting it in as good as I can, and things just didn't work out, and that's part of sports, right?
right.
Yeah,
Yeah, and Skylar and Tyler were playing so well. I think that's the argument. Sky played well the entire time. Tyler had one miss on the sixth ball and maybe one other mistake we talked about. So that was really the argument. It wasn't so much Tyler against Earl. It was a little bit more of what you're looking at made the questionable decision, and not to take anything away from Tyler. Of course, he played great. But I thought also Earl did a lot of things well to get in position to win, and I just kind of thought the easy things would go away with Earl. It wasn't really too many of the difficult things that got him.
Yeah, I mean, when he was in tough spots, when he's kicking at balls, or when he had a decent starter, his safety play I thought was great. His battling, like not just running out, but just his battling. When it was that meat and potatoes part of the match, I thought he did well, and he started off really good in a lot of those matches where you're thinking, okay, like it's gonna be Earl. It's great. This is what we all hoped for, right? To see a flash of years past, and we got it, but then we also got the other side of it where he kind of fell apart, where it seemed like I remember Joey's wife had texted him, and she's not a big pool fan, and I think what she told him is this guy's a liability, and that's just from an outside perspective of someone who doesn't watch a whole lot of pool and just seeing his emotions, his facial expressions, the way he kind of needed to be, you know, lifted up his chin, so to speak, throughout the event. Um, how tough was that for you guys?
It was tough, but I mean, and it's always tough to see, I guess. I guess more than anything, that I thought of when it came to the Earl pick is we had a team that could handle that. I played many years with Earl, and it was a lot, ups and downs mentally and vocally with Earl. Um, but they were all professionals, and those were guys that could handle it. And we knew the upside of Earl. Just like whenever I thought about the different things about picking Earl this year, I felt like he would, you know, be better getting to that shot, be better doing some things, especially on the slick table, than some of the guys I had choices from at this moment. And he did a lot of those things that I thought he would do pretty well, and just didn't close it. Now the liability side of things, again, you get both the good and the pluses and the minuses, I guess you might say.
Right,
Saw when he won that point with Shane, how much it did for the team, and
massive,
yeah, massive for the team and massive for the crowd. So we only got one of those glimpses there. If we had got another one of those glimpses, the balance on things might look a little different with
of
that pick
course.
girl. So, um, it was just a couple matches later where I think it was y'all that had the quote up there, that maybe I'm not in shape for this, so it's
Yeah,
not like it's like totally Earl all the time that way. It was just a match or two before whenever we had a big, high moment. So that's just what it's going to be. But that's kind of what the Mosconi Cup is, anyways.
right.
Ups and downs, and see how you can handle it.
Yeah, I think that was the part that was real. Like, I mean, I'd known that, talking with people throughout the beginning part of the week is, Earl's, I don't want to say attitude, but just, his demeanor at times. He had flashes of his brilliance, but then when he would get down, it was really draining on the other guys who were really trying to stay focused and bear down. And, it's kind of like you can only ignore it, but for so long, right before it's like right there eating at you. And if you're sitting in the chair next to him playing doubles, that's a whole other kind of animal as well. Um, it was really it set up for something really special, and especially as they snatched that first doubles of the day with Shane and Earl, I thought it's gonna happen. They're gonna tie it up. Uh, Sky was in a big spot to make it 8-8. Walk me through that ball that was missed. And by the way, we're gonna have Sky and Tyler on, I think, this weekend on Sunday, so we'll delve a little more deep into it. But what did you tell them? How surprised were you? Walk me through that whole experience.
Yeah, I kind of, I think I was sitting next to Joey Gray, and of course our emotions are running pretty high, and I was talking to those guys as far as, hey, we stay positive no matter what, myself included, over there on those benches. And I kind of turned my head for half a second, turned back, and the ball's bobbling. Um, Sky didn't have to really talk to him about that. He brought it up himself. That he got a little time crunched, realizing he needed
Extension.
he needed the bridge instead of the extension, or maybe both rather.
Yeah.
Um, and he just came out and said it. He's very aware of what goes on with him fundamentally now, after going through things for the last couple of years. And he said, I just kind of poked at it, being stretched. And when you poke at it, it doesn't really, that little bit of English you put on the ball doesn't really turn the ball like you expect. And you know, I thought it would be a little different, even though he missed that ball. But you know how things can turn around quickly there. And Yeah, he goes up 4-1.
In
Probably
breaking,
get
I
that,
think.
huh?
He would have been breaking, I think, if I'm not mistaken. I'm
Yeah,
pretty
it
sure.
would have been 4-1, and I do think you're right, breaking, and then maybe Shane gets a little more freed up, and maybe that.
That's the thing, Jeremy. Yeah.
Yeah, and maybe Jason doesn't get a little fortune on his side quite as much as he had in that following match. But I thought our lineups for day four there, um, just like last year, believe it or not, even in a bigger hole, I thought our lineups for day four last year gave us a good chance to try and get back in that match last year. And I thought definitely put us in a winning spot this year. We really anticipated trying to catch them at nine or take the lead 9-8, one of the two.
No, I said it at the beginning of the day, like when I woke up, because for some reason, and I think it's because of the UK time difference, but Matcham was posting those lineups like at 3 a.m. Vegas time. So I would get up anyway, just check my phone, and I would see him. And the first thing I do when I got up in the morning, I think it was around 4 or 5 in the morning, is I just look straight on your side. And when I see the lineup you had, I'm not gonna lie, man, I liked it. And I talked with Joey about it whenever he got up, and Mike whenever we saw him later on that morning. I thought you were in a position where everything you said had a possibility to come to fruition, right? Or if Earl and them can steal one, then after that, um, I forgot what was that second match of the day, but basically where if Sky wins and knots it up, well then I think it really takes the pressure off of Shane, which is where when he can be his most dangerous, right? Because we've seen him in tough Mosconi Cup spots kind of tense up a little bit. And I know he had his chances against Jason. That standard by either one of them wasn't the best. But if he's at 8-8 versus what was it 9-7, then at that point it's a
Right,
completely different Shane. I feel like.
right. And, it was Sky and Shane to start, so we came out strong because that match got
Yeah,
pushed. Sky came in second. And then we kind of felt like it was either Tyler or Shane in that third match, coming with Sky, Shane, and Tyler, and with some kind of order there with Sky coming first. But kind of felt like we'd win those first two, put Shane in a better spot than Tyler.
yeah,
No, really no pressure on Tyler going into what is probably going to be a pretty heavy match against Jason or Josh.
yeah.
Um, so we loved our lineups. That like I said, that five ball got away from Skyler, but hopefully he doesn't live very long with that. He shouldn't. He played a great Mosconi Cup. All the guys did. Shane played a great Mosconi Cup. To
But
be honest, I saw some comments about people talking about Shane not playing that well, and they weren't watching the same Mosconi I was.
no,
That last
mine
match
either.
against Jason got a little frustration, and maybe a couple of mistakes, a little skid on the six and whatnot. But overall, Shane played one of his best Mosconis, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree, and I think this is where the talking point of the entire week it seemed like wasn't about Shane. And I think that's where he can really be Shane like if that if that works because when all the other guys step up, right? When you had Tyler doing his thing, when you had Sky who just played lights out, probably the best player of the whole tournament, for my money anyway. It really makes Shane play more loose, where he can just be another player, even though he's not another player. He's SVB, but um, yeah, I when that five ball was missed, it kind of took the wind out of the sails in that whole room. It seemed like because I think everyone was riding such a high of Sky just looking like ever so dominant, right? And really the entire event.
Yeah, he looked great the entire event, and I think everyone feared that punishment that we had taken every time that big mistake had happened.
Yeah,
Those seemed like those big mistakes didn't happen at a tied score hardly ever. It was almost like we had a lead, um, and you just kind of wonder how the chips are going to fall after a mistake like that. And you know, it was a circumstantial kind of mistake, in my opinion. When you're stretched, I remind people of things all the time. You're not in your normal. You almost have to be a little more conscious of what you're doing rather than like a regular shot. So
but there was a lot going on. I mean, he kind of got a little jelly roll to get on that ball the way he did in the first place,
well, he
and
made a
then
great pitch shot though.
he did. Yeah, no, no, it was phenomenal. But to lay up like that and be in that spot, like, I could imagine like my adrenaline was going. So how can it be like for him out there, with everybody watching and you're perfect and you're out because that's what everybody thought. That's what I thought as I'm sitting there watching. The entire room thought that. The entire world who was watching thought that, and then when it happened, I said, "Oh man, that's a bit rough." But walk me through, or let me know just from Jeremy Jones, the commentator and the pool expert, what you thought of Sky's performance because I thought it was pretty. It was like legendary almost the way that he played.
Yeah, it was incredible. And he stayed on the gas pedal the entire time is what I liked. And that's a confident Sky Woodward. That's a guy that's, preparing more and just like that kiss shot, if you watch it, I was kind of doing some commentary on the sideline, me and Joey, and I was like, well, you've been aggressive the entire match, going for a lot of shots and no reason to slow down here. And he made a nice kiss shot, played it with a little right English, get the cue ball to come up. And just that five ball slipped away. But the overall question is how he played. Um, I don't know if there'll ever be an MVP on the losing team, but if there is, that should have been the first one, in my opinion. The way he played, and not taking anything away from Josh, but I think Josh would tell you that Sky was the best player that week, anyways, in Vegas.
Josh said as much. We talked to
Yeah,
him after the room was clearing out, and um, Joey and I got a hold of him, and he was could barely even speak because after all the excitement and yelling and everything else. But in the short, like whatever it was, like 3 minute clip that we got with him, one of the things that he went on about was about Sky and giving a lot of respect to his performance and how clutch he came, and um, he hasn't been playing maybe as frequently as some of these other guys, but boy, when he does, he everybody knows he's there.
yeah, and he's real hip as well. He sees things as we do lineups together. He's an assistant captain, co-captain, however you want to look at it. Um, and he recognizes other things. Like you know, just for instance, when Earl's in there, um, we want to keep the room a little more clear. Earl gets a little better focus when he's by himself or just with Shane practicing the doubles. If someone's there, he has somebody to kind of talk to. And, I recognize things like that. But Skylar recognizes things like that without even being around Earl near as much as I was. He's just a hip guy. And he's always paying attention, believe it or not.
We opened the show with talking about Fort Worth Birds and Albert, and how much did that? Because I know you guys had some time together, just the two of you out there. I think it was for some celebration they did out there, right? Where he was putting on an exhibition, or what exactly was going on there? I think it was during the
Yeah, it was a
summertime.
it was an anniversary, 70th anniversary of the store. You talking about Earl, right? Me and
Right.
Earl.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so we did a few challenge matches, some trick shots, just played pool with people and kind of hung out for a couple days doing whatever Albert and them saw fit, and it was a lot of good fun. And I'll tell you another thing, I could tell Earl was hitting balls. He played awfully well right here in Texas. Of course, he's always loved Texas, so maybe that had a little bit to do with it.
Yeah. Without a doubt. And that was really for you anyway. Was that like your first glimpse of seeing Earl for the year?
Somewhat, yeah. Definitely in person, it was my first time, and you know, I thought of the future there. That was in June, and I thought of the future, but it was kind of like something I just put in the memory bank. Let's see what he does in some tournaments, and
Right.
uh,
Just kind of like something to lean on later on and reflect
yeah,
on.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, to me, like I said, the biggest part was I could tell he was hitting balls. It wasn't just oh, let me go do an exhibition. He was very into it and had been very into pool. I could tell when he's home or doing other things.
We mentioned Shane and his performance that he had. Do you think that by putting Sky as that vice captain, that it helped kind of take off some more pressure off of him, and where Sky could take on more of that responsibilities? Maybe he'd do better in that role.
Well, I think Shane at this point would tell you that maybe Sky is better for that role, like you just said, and uh,
Naturally, I feel
there,
like Jeremy. I don't think he has to like press to be that kind of leader. I think he just comes to him,
right.
at
I,
least from the
I
outside.
agree, and I think Shane recognizes that as well. If we're talking about Shane, that Shane likes that. Several times he said, "Hey, y'all do your lineups, and I'm good with it." Because even past when I was assistant, we had talked to Shane and make sure he was good with things, and yeah, I think Shane fully trusted what was going on. Uh, he loved the team. I think the Earl was an inspiration for Shane. To be fair, I think he's still a hero of his, and as crazy as Earl might be sometimes at what appears out there, he was great in the locker room. He kept Tyler laughing, Earl, Oscar laughing. Shane's always laughing at Earl. It doesn't matter. It's almost like a brotherly thing,
Yeah.
the way he does it. So, there were some question marks out there with some comments from Earl or ups and downs that you could say was a liability,
Yeah.
like was said before. But in the locker room, there was wasn't always laughs, but it was always genuine, and that means a lot.
When he's going out there and he's giving high fives and things, was that more of just Earl being Earl, or was that you guys saying, hey, maybe get your ass out there and go lift some spirits?
Uh, I think just once I had to say that to him. We want him hitting balls again.
Right.
When we're out there, he's by himself, which is where Earl's going to get in his best, form. Um, but for the most part, every time he came out, that was on him. And I'll tell you, he only time in 30 something years of no 30 years of probably knowing Earl that I really saw him recognize he's loved. And no, don't
Wait,
ever
wait,
love him.
say that again.
Well, the first times in 30 years that I saw Earl recognize that he's loved um, by so many fans, and that was something special for me to see, and it was almost like a jerking moment. He was very emotional about it. He didn't shed any tears, but he was right there on the verge of it, and um, it made him want to play more in the future. He told me he's going to go overseas and play some of these events, and it's just kind of felt something different there, and I'll tell you, it's something special to me, and just because Earl's Earl, I mean, he's one of the greats of the game, is greatest ever 9 ball player. Who knows? But to see him to kind of almost check himself in that regard, and that's what those fans did, and that was a special moment.
Do you think we've seen Earl hit his last Mosconi Cup ball?
Um, I think it's 50-50. I mean, I think, there's a lot of players, even though may have one asterisk next to them, their age, how much they're playing, how well they played lately, whatever you want to call it. I think there's a lot of players that if they commit to that tour has a chance to make it off rankings. And I don't think you could deny that Earl, has that chance as well, right? If he goes and plays all these events, you're looking at somewhat of the same crowd last year. You're going to see more young guys that I think is going to be definitely the future for America. But yeah, I think it's 50-50 with Earl. I think he's got a shot to qualify. And we'll see, as far as how a pick goes in the future for him.
Well, I mean, given the standings where they are, I mean, Shane's going to be a lock. Everyone knows, Sky's going to be, an automatic pick just for his performance every year. But he can very well make it off of merit, like anyone else. But it's really wide open for a lot of guys if they can make one or two decent runs in events where they can lock up that, let's say, second or even third spot on the team just based off of rankings.
Yeah, it's hard to run deep in those events. I think it's for America, you're going to have a Shane and the Sky, and I'm sure, I think Tyler. I
Yeah.
think you're going to see Tyler make some deep runs in those events and some big events this year. He's just progressing in the right way all the time. It seems like Oscar, I think, is going to play most of all the events as well. Again, you got Shane Wolford, who should, just like he's been doing, jumping up and up with his game, and really, there's a whole nother cast of players, late teens or in their 20s, even early 30s, that if they commit to those tournaments, they're going to improve their game and they're going to have a shot to make the team as well.
Who are some juniors that are maybe on the radar for you? that come to mind that have that kind of potential where their time may be coming sooner than later?
Well, Joey Tate has done real well. Lucas Werner. I know the last name always kind of messes me up a
I
little
can't
bit.
pronounce it either. Yeah.
Yeah. Uh, Landon Hollingsworth is a kid that I think has a ton of potential. Um, Trenton White, I think the tall kid from Florida. He's a very athletic player, and there's just a lot of them around the country. Eric Roberts, I think he grinds and handles the moment as well as any of those juniors. Uh, so there's just a ton of them. I mean, as far as junior players, and then we got a ton of young ones that still are in there. Like I see some names there. Laz Martinez, who's a
He
kid here.
plays jam up. Yeah.
Yeah, he plays great, and he's just need to get these kids. Now they've been around each other a lot these last couple of years with some great things going on, which is really elevated just because of pushing each other. But we also need to get them in some of the better players' hands in some way or another, to really let them shine and improve. Because I mean, a lot of them are at that age to where boom, they can really kind of hit the scene a little more than you think. I mean, sports and humans, they do amazing things just kind of all of a sudden sometimes. And
Yeah.
for
Well, strike while
myself,
the iron's hot. We saw Cash at the Texas Open, have a real big win against Federer, if I'm not
yeah,
mistaken.
yeah, Cash Keaton, he's beaten Federer a couple times, as a matter of fact, I think. But
Yeah. If you had to give those some of these American juniors some advice to maybe take that next step, what would it be, Jeremy?
well, play as many events as possible, but the mentality is to learn from everything that happens. I know it's a cliche, kind of leave winning behind, but they're at a point to where if they start playing the bigger events, that should be easier for them to do because they're seeing those heroes in front of them. And then get quality time with great players training and understanding how to train. Training's all about quality. And with Skyler, I would always tell him, he's like, man, I get a lot of balls in because I can play fast. I'm like, well, I'd rather you get half the balls in practicing and play more like your match time. Because if you saw it out there, Skyler really didn't get into that run around mode at all. He played a very methodical 30-second shot clock, especially for Sky Woodward.
I think I think I maybe saw it in like the tail end of one match because specifically I looked over to Panozzo and I said, if he starts having that strut, they better watch out because I've seen it for years, in so many events, especially him being a regular at the Open, where if he starts dancing around that table and he's got this pace to him and this rhythm, ain't nobody putting his ass in the seat.
Yeah, we've said that for a few years. Me and him talked about it that, hey, make sure you're aware of your match pace, not only practicing, but in the match itself. And he'd always tell me, he said, but when I'm about to finish him off, I speed it up a little bit, and
Yeah,
it's like, that's fine. I got no problem with that. But just initially, I thought he was wonderful with his pace around the table overall.
there was a little bit of gamesmanship by both sides. Tensions got a little high. We saw it with Tyler and Laley, and we talked to both of them after that. We seen I saw Tyler kind of get the crowd revved up the very next day, like he called the shot, and I'm curious what were your opinions on that? Was that encouraged, discouraged, or was it just kind of let them be who they are, and we'll deal with the other side as it comes.
Well, it wasn't encouraged as far as like, but when something like that happens, I'm not going to ever go out and get unless I see something like seriously out of line, which I don't feel that's ever going to happen with the crew I had. But I'm not going to go out and stop my guy. I'm going to wait till he's stopped, and then I'm going to defend the hell out of him. And then maybe
Right.
me and him will talk about it later behind closed doors or whatever. But, um, that was a little a la Jason Shaw, I think, from the previous year. Tyler, felt
Yeah.
it was time to get him going, and he defended his point, and I was right there with him. And things are always going to get a little heated at times. There's been um, a few questionable things at times, but you know, Alex kind of I think bowed up to Tyler a little bit, and I said, don't be doing that, and just make sure you stay on that blue carpet. Don't come on this red carpet. So,
Is that what you told him? Why did I not get that quote? Come on, man.
yeah, he said you're right, and so he got right back on the blue carpet. So it was good.
But that's the Mosconi Cup, right? In a nutshell, the competitive
Absolutely,
fire, right?
absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
the fans help us get that fire going, but I mean that fire is set regardless, and you're fighting for your country. A lot of teammates and a lot of players that didn't make the team, which was another special thing I saw. A couple of the guys that didn't make the team showed up. A couple of past players showed up as well, which is huge to our players, and I can't commend them enough.
You have goals and hopes to coach next year's team.
Yeah, I mean that the goal side of things is learning more all the time and trying to apply those things, and really put in the time to learn even more away from the Mosconi Cup. Um, I'd love to do it again, and the goal would be again, like I said, to try and, of course, get the W, but be better at the job. And the hopes are to get to work with these guys again and go through that fight. That fight is exhausting, um, but it's well worth it.
Well, how do you think your team did when it came to the fight, Jeremy?
Well, I think they did exceptional. I think that's exactly the type of fight we wanted, toe to toe. Maybe not always easy, but we rebounded. Um, they reset themselves very well after some tough situations and after some incredible situations, which sometimes is the toughest time to reset. These guys are fighters, right? So after they made it's like I always say, you think Josh Filler's going to miss twice in a row? So I mean, when he
Yeah.
misses one, he's going to come back with the other, and our guys are the same kind of thing. Um, kept it simple technically and kept it loud with the fight and leaving the mistake behind. And I think the guys did an incredible job.
How proud of you are they?
Oh, super proud, super proud. I mean, you know, odds were stacked against us, but they kind of left that behind. I left that behind, and yeah, I was super proud. I mean, there's only one way to get even more proud, and I don't even think that's the right way to say it. More proud, maybe more happy if we had gotten the W, but I couldn't be any prouder overall.
Yeah. One thing that I've taken away from all this is the respect from both players. I mean, from both teams. Outside of the competitive fire that was involved, um, it was mutual and genuine and sincere because they said as much even off camera as they did on. And I think it's easy to say like cliche things, right? And I remember when we talked. I think it was after day two, and you guys took a 3-1 loss that day, and now it's
Mm-hmm.
tied at 4. And you were very, I forgot what you said, but very optimistic and genuine, and it came through with the way that everyone, was out there battling on the table. You um, I was pretty surprised. I'm not gonna lie, because you'll say things that, I think it's gonna be close and competitive, but you never know. And like you said, on paper, you guys were underdogs, and we talked about it plenty of times, but. Um, it was so every game was so weighted. It was only like a few spots in those singles, and really it was with David and Jason when they played their singles where it was like it was easy. When they
Mm-hmm.
break the balls and it was just everything's laid out perfectly for them. But aside from that, I mean, it was a grind, man, a real grind out there.
Yeah, it was a fight. I think was it the UK Open or maybe the European Open? It fails me right now. I think maybe it was the European Open. We started to see the fight at the end of those events with those new break rules and a little bit tighter pockets, and I think that helped the Mosconi be more of a fight than ever. Um, and that's what you're going to get when you see both players at the table more often, more engaged. You can see the toe to toe a heck of a lot more. Um, so I think again the break rule and the changes have helped that a lot. And I think moving forward, I think you're going to see nothing but great Mosconis. America's going to catch up. America's going to be on the winning side of that very soon, and as long as they keep fighting, that's going to happen.
Would you rather them stick with the hand rack for the Mosconi Cup? The break rules I'm not even going to argue about because I think that's perfect. But would you rather them use a template versus the referees racking balls.
I don't mind the hand rack. I think the referees have gotten to a point where they're really good, and they're wanting to make sure things are really good all the time. Um, I like the variable. You know, sometimes it doesn't go your way, like I said, with the hand rack, but I like the variable. I like, you know, the guys are so good. You know, the rack was still pretty darn good overall. The guys are so good. We don't want it to get a little easy out there, which I don't think that would be the case with the Mosconi anyway. So, I mean, if we went with the template, it wouldn't hurt it or anything. I just like the hand rack overall.
I'm with you. It's like part of sports. You get bad calls in sports all the time, right? And I like that human element, and you got just as much of a chance of someone getting a bad rack versus the other. I think that really levels it out for the Americans. More importantly, because it's you're going to have more pool being played. You're going to get more chance at the table, more innings, more safety plays, all those things that I think favor the Americans. Um, if let's just play devil's advocate. If Earl doesn't play this year like he did this past year, is he in consideration for next year's Mosconi Cup?
Uh, I guess you can't say no to that. I think you're going to see. I think you're going to see some players make it to where probably Earl's got to play and maybe not qualify, but get a little more time put in front of whoever is making those decisions. Um, I think you're going to see a Shane Wolford jump up. I think you're going to see Josh Roberts jump up. I think you're going to see a Billy Thorpe back on the map, and along with a lot of other younger guys out there. And there's some other ones that I hope play more events. You know, Jeremy Sosi kind of guys, a little bit older but play great. Um, Oscar again, you know, that's the one thing about Oscar this year in the event. We didn't get to see him play much, to be
Yep,
honest with you. He played with Earl, all kinds of funny looks. Um, he played that singles match. You know, he missed that six ball. He was upset about it, but then again, didn't really get much after that. And the one time he did get to play in the team, he played a beautiful out.
he did.
So I think Oscar looks to improve off of this year, and I know he wants a heck of a lot more time on that Mosconi Cup table.
Is that what you want? You want your job to be harder when it comes to selecting these guys for that 4 and 5?
Hell yeah, I don't want to be out there and feel like, you know, I wish I was playing. That's not what I want at all. I want to, you know, and anyone will want that as a coach to say, okay, I can leave my cues at home. They got this. So
Did you ever wish you had you can go and put it together out there at any point?
I wished every day I was playing with those guys. I love the crew. I love the excitement. I like the tension I always have. I think the break rule, to be honest with you, and the tight pockets kind of sets up for me a little bit. It's almost like that time at the table for like a Del Garza, right? For those guys that are right there on the cusp of doing well. What this break rule does is it gets those guys a lot more time at the table without so many big pressure moments because the racks lay tough. They can roll out. You know, they start to get a little more comfortable. And once comfort sets in, they start to swing a little better, and that with that becomes a lot of belief on what they can do. And I can think the same thing with some of the older guys, maybe myself included. If they understood where the game's at right now, they got a chance to get out there and get comfortable, maybe get in some of these matches and have some incredible results.
You got any regrets when it comes to some of the lineup decisions you made?
Uh, I mean, the only one to me is what everyone else saw, probably. You know, putting Earl in there in that spot with Skyler, but I can't have regrets. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, I mean, if someone told me, yeah, Skyler and Earl were definitely going to win it, or Skyler and Tyler were definitely going to win it. I don't know if I still have a regret about it, but I mean, would definitely have made a change, I guess, if they'd have told me that. But it's hard to see the future, Mike,
Yeah,
and
of course. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I think like I said, last year's lineups were good. I thought me and Skyler did well with this year's lineup, so I think in theory we put ourselves in a good spot, and uh, and I think the guys played incredible, and they showed we had a good chance in this year's Mosconi.
Was it more of like a group effort as far as input, or did that buck stop with you when it came to lineups, and or you and Sky rather?
Well, I make the final decision, but I mean, Skylar and I put in the most time. Of course, we'd have a team meeting as the event went every night, whether it be eating or separate with the guys, and kind of let them know what we were thinking, and they give us some input here and there, and it was mainly, at least in my eyes, and I think Skylar's as well. It's it's how they said things to us, or who said things to us. Like Shane, for instance, going into that last day, we were pretty sure we were going to come with Sky in that first singles without a doubt, even if someone said something else. But then Shane grabbed it by the horns and said, it should be me next, and so that made our decision there, between him and Tyler in that second singles on day four, and then Tyler was coming in with the third singles. So those are the
I,
kind of things you want to hear, right?
yeah, yeah. Put me in, coach.
Yeah,
You want guys who embrace moments versus shy away from them, who can handle that pressure and who are tough enough. I love that. You know, I
yeah.
want to ask you because I heard that there was discussion about if it gets Hill, and I also heard that Shane said if it gets Hill, that Sky needs to play. And I wonder if you can comment on that any, or if that was even discussed, or if what I heard was a lie.
Okay, yeah, I'll definitely tell you. So the night before, when we were making our matchups, um, we were talking about a potential captain's pick. Of course, it just always got to come up. It's not actually something that I formally brought up. Just kind of got brought up during the discussion, and the whole team kind of looked at Sky and Shane as playing that role, and deservedly so. Um, the next morning, we kind of left it at that. I told him I'd see how things were playing out. The next morning, when we all got there, Shane announced, "I want the captain's pick."
Was that
So,
right?
yeah, absolutely. First thing out of his mouth. He told us that, he's got some motivation behind it, but he feels good. His grandfather had passed away that morning.
Yeah, we heard him. Yeah.
Yeah. And so he wanted to play that and win that cup for his grandfather. And that was music to my ears, besides, of course, him losing his grandfather. But as a captain,
Right.
hearing Shane, just like I heard him night before, saying, "I want to play right after Sky in the singles," and the way he played and his attitude the entire week, I wouldn't say it was night and day from years before, but it was definitely heading in the direction any future captain would want as far as SVB is concerned. So,
You
yeah,
know,
I'd say lie. I don't know, lie. Maybe somebody. I hate to say lie all the time.
I'll
Somebody's
go call him.
mistaken.
I'll call him and chew their ass out. Don't you worry. But you know
Okay,
what?
okay, yeah, it was
I'm
quite
like you,
the
man.
opposite, actually. So,
I like the fact, and I think this was prior to the last day, so not that morning because we had heard about Shane's grandfather early in the morning. Um, that must have been just incredible to go out there and play with those kind of emotions weighing on you, and even playing now against Tony. Um, but I like that about Shane, him, rising to the occasion and saying, I want to do it. I love hearing that because whether Sky has that vice captain role or not, Shane's always going to be looked at in some kind of leadership role, whether, having a title on it or not. He's SVB. Um, yeah, it would have been great to see. We'll never know how it would have ended up, but you guys were at least in a position to make it competitive and to steal a couple. And it really, as as time's gone on in the last few days, I look back on like a few matches, right? Like if Earl just closes out Jason here, or if this ball doesn't get missed there, that 11-7 really could have been the other way. And really, what I wanted to see was how do the Euros look with more heat on them late in the event? Because I don't think it was really heat at 3-1 after day one. I want to see how they look with some heat on their ass, going into day four.
I agree. A couple things with the Sky and Earl match got away from me, even though they looked pretty good early. Um, you know, Shane doesn't really carry an entourage at singles events or anything like that. But if you followed his career, you can tell that he wants that big moment in the singles. He always has. He wants to play. He rolls out to the toughest shots ever. I mean, he wants the pressure in the singles events, no matter how you size it up. And for him to carry that type of mental state into the Mosconi Cup, that really helped us right from the start. to be fair, and I think it was recognized right from the start. Maybe not so much by Oscar, maybe not so much by Earl, but definitely myself, um, Skylar, and Tyler. They definitely recognize a different SVB mentally.
Well, I know you're a big one pocket guy, and Shane is still out there in Las Vegas playing Tony. I'm curious. Well, first of all, some of those shots from Skyler, I thought those clutch shots, the combo, the bank combo, they look a little one pocket s to me. Jeremy, was that? Do you think that there's a lot of credit that needs to be given there when it comes to Sky's experience, or a little dabbling in one pocket to come with those shots, or more importantly, even to see them?
Yeah, well, I don't think he's trying to get the credit for it because why not sneak up on somebody playing a little one pocket? But he and I had talked about it that I think him and Federer are the two favorites going into the Derby, and if he's in stroke, I think him and Federer are the two favorites for the overall, in my opinion. Um, just because Sky's one pocket skills are a lot better than people think. Race to three sets up well for him, and yeah, I think he likes knowing that he can play the game when you hear him and you get around him about the one pocket. He might slough it off to most of the public, but if he knows you, he'll tell you, yeah, you better watch out for me playing that pocket apiece.
He can come with it, man. His creativity is great. He obviously runs out from anywhere. I don't care what size pockets, but especially on, if they're playing on 4.5, like they will be at the Derby. I kind of like it. Yeah, I do.
Yeah,
He's always
well,
had a great cut break too, which I'm not sure if they're playing that at the Derby, but he always breaks the balls extremely well.
well, he's won the Derby before. It was just a
Right.
few years ago when he snapped it all off. He won the 9 ball. I don't think he's going to give up on his training now. Of course, the holidays are a big part of his life, but he's going to be prepared for it, not trying to prepare there for it. And I tell you one thing, he's probably the best in the world at, and it's something you can't really dissect too much, is instincts. He probably has the best instincts I've ever been around when it comes to pool, as far as like,
A big compliment.
well, assessing situations,
Yep.
assessing it, understanding that all the decisions or all the choices are tough. That's when it's hard to really pick one, when they're all tough, when one doesn't really show its face so easily. Um, and just like when he banked comboed the 9 in with the 2 ball, he knew there was no rollout. Everything was terrible. Um, Shane even kind of confirmed that when he left him, saying whatever you like, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
of course, the 9 going in is a little bit of luck there, but the percentages of what he played was correct. I mean, basically it's like this: if he does anything else, he probably doesn't get back to the table at all. If he rolls out, he probably doesn't get back to the table.
Yeah.
Um, if he plays any kind of goofy shot, probably doesn't get back to the table.
But
So
there was that other shot where it was a combo where I think the 9 ball is laying on the rail and he combos it, but it wasn't just that he made the ball. It was the protection of the cue ball, because then the 1 ball comes off the 9, ends up down table, and then he still tucked the cue ball in behind some other balls. He just played it to absolute perfection. The guy's just
yeah,
super clutch. I'm
that was a
just,
1-9.
yeah,
Where if he knew percentage wise, if he just hit it decent, the one was going to come past the ball. He tucked him behind up table. I think it almost got dead on the 7, actually, whenever
yeah.
his opponent jumped at the ball. But yeah, like I said, his instincts, to me, that's probably another thing about one pocket. Instincts are a huge part of one pocket, understanding what might, your opponent, what he's trying to do to you next. And, maybe gets back to that 7 footer. I always talk about that 7 footer time on the test. 7 footers got some value because you
Well,
do you do see situations and little scenarios and whatnot that you may never see on other tables.
look, I've been meaning to talk to Sky since before the event in Iowa. So that would have been, I think, like around June, July. And that was right around when there was some talk of him playing Shane a nice juicy set of some bar box 8 ball. So when I get Sky on this weekend, I'm gonna ask him about it now that the Mosconi Cup and all that team camaraderie is a little bit over with. See if maybe we can get that match to happen. If Shane would even play it at this point, because I know he's a little burnt out from playing a whole lot of pool, as a lot of these guys are, and it's not going to get any easier because there's a whole gauntlet of events back to back to back coming up at the beginning of the year. But I'm curious, Jeremy, have you seen any of this Shane and Tony match at all? And if so, what's been your thoughts on it?
I haven't got to see any of it yet. I kind of was planning on tuning in today with it being 16-15.
Yeah,
Um, I kind of felt like it wouldn't be a runaway either way. If it actually, I kind of felt like if it did get out of hand, I would see SVB in the lead. Meaning, if someone was going to stretch it out, like I kind of felt like Shane would have a better chance of stretching it out because sometimes when you're the better mover, you can get a little worried, and when things aren't going well, you'll try and especially playing a guy you're not so used to playing. Shane's not an easy guy to play playing one pocket because he's not going to shoot all the traditional shots, and
right.
he's such an incredible competitor. I kind of felt like if someone got a big lead, it might be Shane, but I thought it would be a close match. It certainly is, and I'm sure it's been great pool so far.
I haven't been able to watch a whole lot of it. I think I want to say Shane was up 8-4 after day one, and then I think he was up pretty comfortably, like 13 something in day two, and then I want to say Tony came back and took the lead, if I'm not mistaken, or maybe yeah, I want to say Tony took the lead in day two. I fell asleep, but then Shane ends up closing out with getting to 16 first. But it's I'm like you, I'm gonna watch tonight. I'm real excited for it, especially as it's like this right now. I'm sure if Jeremy Jones was playing Shane, they might still be on game one because he's just that much of a grinder. Um, but I love high level one pocket, and I think this match in particular sets the tone for some other potential matchups that we might get to see next year as well.
Yeah, I think Tony got to a 15-13 lead,
Yeah,
keeping
yeah.
track with it last night a little bit before Shane won the last three. So I don't know if they're playing a win by two situation. I didn't keep up with the details too much. I didn't hear of that. So never know. You might see a hill for a lot of money.
Well, who do you like?
I think I kind of like Shane a little bit, just because he's hard to beat. He played really well at the Mosconi. I think he feeds off of those kind of things. Um, I don't think he's ever beaten Tony either, to be honest with you.
Mm-hmm.
So probably has a little bit of a grudge there as far as trying to get that done. And he plays very good in Vegas. Shane does. So he's not a guy that plays. He's won a lot of titles in that room right there at Griff's. A lot of hardware.
Yeah,
So
very
I
comfortable.
think I think it's going to be a close one. Maybe give a hair of an edge to Shane.
Well, Jeremy, listen, I appreciate you stopping by. Congratulations on a great year and a great fight for your team. We hope to all see you back next year with Team USA as well, and we hope to talk to you again soon.
Thanks, Mike, and good luck to y'all. And it was a heck of a 2022. Not only Mosconi, but all the way through. Let's make it better in 23.
Attaboy. Thanks, Jeremy.
All right, all right. See you guys.